Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. I'm Ty Glenn. Hopefully, you guys are having a great Wednesday. Got lots of NHL news for you. Before we go ahead and get started, make sure that you are following the Hockey Talk with TG podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time, 12:30 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It really helps me out, and it gets the podcast out to more people so they can tune in and listen to the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. So it really helps me out. So make sure that you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and make sure that you are following on all audio podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. Like I said, it helps me out, and it gets the podcast out to more and more hockey fans who want to tune in to their number one podcast. And this is the number one podcast, the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with the NHL news for today. So Alex Ovechkin, he scores goal number 891 in the Capitals' 4-3 win over the Boston Bruins on Tuesday. He is 4 goals away, just 4 goals away from passing Wayne Gretzky on the NHL's all-time goal-scoring list. And the Capitals moved to 48, 17, and 9 of the season. They end their 3-game skid, and they are in action today against the Carolina Hurricanes at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. So Alex Ovechkin will look to score goal number 892. And Friday, the Capitals play the Blackhawks, and that game will be on NHL Network, which hopefully that is the game that he breaks the record in as a Blackhawks fan. And if he does, we'll talk about it on Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast. But as a Blackhawks fan, I'm hoping for him to break the record in that game on Friday against the Blackhawks. And Dylan Strome, former Chicago Blackhawk, he had a goal and an assist in this game for a 2-point night. Nick Dow and Tom Wilson scored for the Capitals, while Charlie Lindgren made 21 saves for the Capitals. And I heard on the Bruins broadcast that Tom Wilson actually had an assist. Instead of scoring, he actually assisted on what would have been Alex Ovechkin's 892nd goal in that game. And they were just joking about it on their broadcast because yesterday was April Fool's Day. Alex Ovechkin did have a chance to score goal number 892 before the game was over with on the empty net goal, in which he did shoot all the way down on the empty net, but he missed the net wide. So he missed wide in the empty net. He failed to get his 892nd goal in that game, but he has a chance for redemption in this game, in the Capitals game today against the Hurricanes. Just 4 goals away from the record. Just 4 goals away. And hopefully, and if possible, Alex Ovechkin could even score a hat trick in that game. He could score a hat trick in that game. That would give him 892, 893, and 894. So at the end of that game, he will be tied with Wayne Gretzky for the all-time goal record. And then in Friday's game, he could just break the record against the Blackhawks. So that could be a scenario played out in this game for the Capitals against the Hurricanes today. But that wasn't the only good thing about this Washington Capitals win. Another good thing about this win was Ryan Leonard making his NHL debut with the Washington Capitals. He was drafted 8th overall in the first round of the 2023 NHL draft by the Capitals. And he made his NHL debut in front of his hometown fans, family, friends. Born in Massachusetts, so I'm pretty sure that had to feel special making your NHL debut in your hometown. He wore number 9 for the Washington Capitals. I'm not really sure what number he wore during his time with the BC Eagles. I think he wore number 9. I'm not 100% sure. He signed a 3-year entry-level contract with the Capitals on Monday, and he made his NHL debut on Tuesday against the Boston Bruins after the BC Eagles college hockey season came to an end with a 3-1 regulation loss to the Denver Pioneers in the NCAA regional final. And during his time with the BC Eagles, Ryan Leonard had 49 points in 37 games played, 30 goals, 19 assists for 49 points in 37 games played with the BC Eagles. And he led the nation with 30 goals. He had 9 game-winning goals, earning him the Hockey East Player of the Year. And he was also a nominee for the Hobey Baker Top 10 finalists, which of course the Hobey Baker Award goes out to the top NCAA college hockey player. And during his 2 seasons with the BC Eagles, he had 109 points in 78 games played, 61 goals, 48 assists for 109 points in 78 games played in 2 seasons with the BC Eagles. And take a look at some of his stats from his debut. He finished the game with a -1 rating. He had 14 minutes and 14 seconds of ice time. No shots on goal, but he did have 3 hits in this game. One of the hits was actually posted on Bar Down on the Twitter and Instagram page. And he had a huge hit on Bruins forward Jeffrey Vial. Hopefully I pronounced that last name right. And that was not all for Ryan Leonard. I mean, we see him in the World Juniors with Team USA. He captained Team USA to back-to-back gold medals in the World Juniors. And I remember, well, actually, I don't think he was the captain in 2024. I think that was Rucker McGroarty as the team captain for the 2024 World Juniors. But Ryan Leonard did win back-to-back gold medals with Team USA. He was part of that 2024 and 2025 team, but I think Rucker McGroarty was the team captain in 2024 when USA beat Sweden, and then when USA beat Finland, Ryan Leonard was the team captain. But one thing that I kind of remember for Ryan Leonard's back-to-back gold medals with with Team USA in the World Juniors is he scored the goal against Sweden. This was in 2024 because in 2025 they faced Finland. This was during the 2024 World Juniors. He scored a goal against Sweden, which I think was a great goal for him. And then he blew a kiss to the Sweden crowd, just taunting them as he scored the goal. So that's one thing I remember about Ryan Leonard in the World Juniors. But before his debut, he received a text from Alex Ovechkin inviting him to a team dinner, and Ryan Leonard described the moment as a memorial experience, and he was actually on the ice before his NHL debut with Alex Ovechkin, practicing with him and learning some skills from him, what he can expect at the NHL level. So I think that was great veteran leadership from Alex Ovechkin as he continues to chase Wayne Gretzky's goal record, which, like I said, the Capitals are in action today against the Carolina Hurricanes. So he has a chance to score in this game and possibly get a hat trick in this game, and he'll be tied with Wayne Gretzky for the NHL all-time goal record, and then in Friday's game, he could just break the record. So I think that's how that scenario should be played out for Alex Ovechkin. But moving on from one BC Eagle to another BC Eagle in Gabe Perreault. So we talked about Ryan Leonard already. Now I'm going to be talking about Gabe Perreault. He signed a 3-year entry-level contract deal with the New York Rangers on Monday. He was drafted 23rd overall in the first round of the 2023 NHL draft by the Rangers. He is expected to make his Rangers debut Wednesday, today, when the Rangers face the Minnesota Wild at Madison Square Garden. He had 48 points in 37 games played with the BC Eagles in his sophomore season, 16 goals, 32 assists for 48 points in 37 games played with the Boston College Eagles. He was tied for 4th among NCAA skaters in assists, and he was 8th in points per game with 1.30 and tied for 11th overall in points. And he was named to Hockey East First Team All-Star, and he was a nominee for the Hobey Baker Award, which is given to the top NCAA men's college hockey player. And in his 2 seasons with Boston College, he had 108 points in 73 games played, 35 goals, 73 assists for 108 points in 73 games played. And before playing college hockey with the Boston College Eagles, he played 2 seasons with USA's Hockey's National Team Development Program, in which he had 185 points in 121 games played with them, 71 goals, 114 assists for 185 points in 121 games played. And his assist and point total ranked 4th all-time in program history. In his last season with the team, with USA's hockey's national team development program, he had 132 points in 63 games played, 53 goals, 79 assists for 132 points in 63 games played, which is most in a single season by any player in program history. And of course, he was with Team USA in the World Juniors, winning back-to-back gold medals with the team in 2024 and 2025. He also won a gold medal with Team USA at the 2023 U18 World Championship. So he's had a great college hockey career. He's done well in the World Juniors, and we're going to see him on the big stage as he makes his NHL debut at Madison Square Garden with the New York Rangers. And Madison Square Garden, they're number one arena, probably the top 10 all-time arenas in sports. So I'm pretty sure he feels really good to make his debut at MSG, Madison Square Garden. All right, moving on to the St. Louis Blues. So the Blues, all they do is win, no matter what. Cam Fowler, he scored the overtime game-winning goal as the Blues win 2-1 over the Red Wings in overtime. They extend their winning streak to 10 games. 10 games. And they moved to 41, 28, and 7 of the season. They jumped ahead of the Minnesota Wild for first place in a wild card spot in the Western Conference. And they outscored their opponents 41-14 during their 10-game win streak and have allowed 2 goals or fewer in 9 of the games and 1 or fewer in 7 of them. And fun fact, the longest winning streak by the Blues was at 11 games, and that was back in the 2018-19 season. In 2019, they won the Stanley Cup against the Boston Bruins. And Jordy Binnington, at the time, he was a rookie goaltender. And he started to be back into that form, that Jordy Binnington that we knew or seen in 2019, where the Blues won the Stanley Cup. And Jordan Kyrou also scored for the Blues in this game. He's up to 32 goals of the season. And Jordy Binnington made 20 saves for the St. Louis Blues. And we also got to see the debut of Minnesota Golden Gophers forward Jimmy Snuggerud, who was drafted 23rd overall in the first round of the 2022 NHL Draft by the St. Louis Blues. He finished with a -1 logged in 10 minutes and 43 seconds of ice time and 2 shots on goal. One of the shots on goal was a really good chance for Jimmy Snuggerud. He was wide open. I think this was back in the first period where he was like wide open. He, had a chance to score his first NHL goal, but he was denied by Cam Talbot. He had 51 points in 40 games this season with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Not going to touch too much onto this because I discussed this in Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk with TG podcast. But he had 51 points in 40 games played this season with the Golden Gophers. 24 goals, 27 assists for 51 points in 40 games this season with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And during his 3 seasons with the Golden Gophers, he had 135 points and 119 games played, 66 goals, 69 assists for 135 points and 119 games played with the Minnesota Golden Gophers, which was 3 seasons with the Golden Gophers. And he is one of only 3 Golden Gophers players in Golden Gophers franchise history to score 20 or more goals in 3 consecutive seasons to begin his college hockey career. And he was on the first All-Star Big Team for the Golden Gophers, his second consecutive season, and received a selection as a top 10 finalist for the Hobie Baker Award. And of course, he's won gold medal with Team USA before in the World Juniors. And fun fact, this was something that I did not mention in Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast when I talked about this. Jimmy Snuggerud's father, Dave Snuggerud, played college hockey at University of Minnesota before starting his pro career in the NHL. So I thought that was a fun fact to point out on the podcast, since I did not mention it in Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast. But moving on to the Montreal Canadiens. So Nick Suzuki, man oh man, was he spectacular in that game. He scored the game-tying goal with 9 seconds left in regulation to send the game into overtime. Then scores the overtime game-winning goal 29 seconds into overtime as the Canadiens win 3-2 against the Florida Panthers. Big 2 points for the Montreal Canadiens. And they move to 35-30-9 of the season. And they sweep the season series against the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. They shut out the Panthers 4-0 on December 28th. They won 3-1 at home on March 15th. Won 4-2 on the road in Florida. This was this past Sunday. And then they went 3-2 in overtime at home on April Fool's Day. So they win the home and home. So they sweep the home and home series, and they also sweep the season series against the Florida Panthers. And you should take a look at the Eastern Conference wildcard race. Man, oh man, is it tight. You got the Ottawa Senators who lost 5-2 yesterday to the Buffalo Sabres with 84 points, first place for the wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. And then you got the Canadiens right behind them with 79 points, second place wild card spot right there for the Montreal Canadiens. And then you got the Columbus Blue Jackets who won 8-4 yesterday against the Nashville Predators. Kirill Marchenko hat-trick in that game, by the way. Adam Fantilli scored 2 goals in that game. So they won 8-4 against the Predators yesterday. Big 2 points for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And so they get 77 points right there. And then you got the New York Rangers who are in action today against the Minnesota Wild with 77 points. And then you got the Red Wings who lost 2-1 overtime yesterday to the Blues with 75 points. And then you got the New York Islanders who lost 4-1 yesterday to the Tampa Bay Lightning with 74 points. So it's getting really tight and close as the playoffs near, which the Stanley Cup playoffs, as you did not hear me say this on Monday's episode of the Hockey Talk TG podcast, Stanley Cup playoffs start on April the 20th, which is like two weeks away. It is 2 weeks away. So 2 weeks away from the playoffs, and Stanley Cup playoffs start Sunday, April the 20th. That is 2 weeks away. So games are starting to matter at this time of the season. And Josh Anderson, he scored a goal in this one. Lane Hudson had 3 assists in this game. He has 62 points in 74 games played this season. 5 goals, 57 assists, 62 points in 74 games played this season. 4 points ahead of Matvei Michkov for first in points among rookies. And Sam Montembeault made 25 saves on 27 shots faced for the Canadiens in this game. And for the Panthers, Niko Mikkola and Mackie Samoskevich scored for Florida, while Vika Vanacek made 18 saves in the Panthers. They lose the home-and-home series to the Montreal Canadiens, and they move to 44-26-4 the season. Fun fact, top 3 teams in the Atlantic Division are the Toronto Maple Leafs with 94 points, Tampa Bay Lightning with 93 points, and you got the Florida Panthers with 92 points. And the Panthers are in action on Wednesday against the Toronto Maple Leafs, which that game is going to matter as both teams look to earn a big 2 points in this one. And the Canadiens, they continue their 3-game homestand Thursday against the Boston Bruins at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Sorry, I kind of had something on my camera right there as you were watching that on YouTube. Apologies right there. I had a little something on my camera that I needed to wipe off if you were watching that on YouTube. But anyway, moving on to the Vegas Golden Knights. So the Vegas Golden Knights, they clinched the Stanley Cup playoffs despite their 3-2 loss to the Edmonton Oilers on Tuesday. The scenario for them going into that game was they would clinch the playoffs if they defeat the Oilers in any fashion, or if they get 1 point versus the Oilers and either of the following occurs. If they get at least 1 point versus the Oilers, or if the Flames lose to Utah in any fashion, the Blues lose to the Red Wings in regulation, or if the Flames, like I said, lose to Utah in regulation, which they did lose to them in regulation. They lost 3-1 yesterday to Utah Hockey Club. Vegas' 6-game winning streak comes to an end, and they move to 45-21-8 of the season. 5 points ahead of the Kings for first place in the Pacific Division with 98 points. So it is possible that we get the Kings and Oilers going at it in the Stanley Cup playoffs for the 4th straight year. We'll see if the Kings can win against that one, win against the Oilers if it does happen. But I'm pretty sure the majority of the people will have the Oilers winning over the Kings since they beat the Kings 3 times in a row. The Kings have 93 points. Oilers have 91 points. So could get Kings to Oilers 4th straight year in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll just have to see how that will play out. Or how this final stretch of the NHL regular season plays out, I should say. Pavel Dorofeyev and Nicholas Roy scored for Vegas in this one, while Adin Hill made 17 saves. And for the Oilers, Jake Wallman, Leon Draisaitl, and Victor Arvidsson all scored a goal in this one. All goals coming in the second period, by the way, for the Oilers. And Jake Wallman gets his first goal as the Edmonton Oilers since being traded from the Red Wings to the Oilers. Well, actually, no, it was the Sharks to the Oilers. I believe it was the Sharks to the Oilers. I know he played for Detroit before, but I don't think he was traded from the Red Wings to the Oilers. But Leon Draisaitl, he scored his 52nd goal of the season. He leads the league in goals, by the way, with 52 goals. And Victor Arvidsson had his 22nd of the season. And Calvin Pickard made 20 saves for the Vegas Golden Knights. The Oilers looking good. They have won 2 in a row, and they moved to 43, 26, and 5 of the season. And they continue their 4-game road trip in San Jose against the Sharks Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. That game will air on Hulu and ESPN Plus for you to watch. And the Golden Knights face the Jets Thursday at home at 9 o'clock p.m. Central Time. But still staying with the Edmonton Oilers, we got to talk about Connor McDavid. I mean, Connor McDavid, he's been out with a lower body injury that he sustained in the Oilers' 43 overtime loss to the Winnipeg Jets on March the 20th. Missed 5 games with the team. On the bright side, the team is 3-2-0 without him since the injury. But according to head coach Chris Comblok, he should return before the regular season concludes. So it could still be a chance that we see Connor McDavid in action in the regular season before the regular season ends. He has 90 points in 63 games played this season with the Oilers, so 26 goals, 64 assists for 90 points in 63 games played this season with the Oilers. And he's missed some time with the Oilers already this season. Missed 3 games due to an ankle injury sustained on October 28th of 2024. And he was suspended for 3 games for cross-checking Connor Garland in January 2025. So, still missing a couple more games for the Edmonton Oilers, but hopefully he be back in action before the regular season concludes. He has resumed skating with the Oilers. He's been practicing with the Oilers, but still no definite return on if Connor McDavid. Well, I mean, he could return before the season's over, but we're not sure which game would he come back in. So that's what I meant by no definite return. Which game will he come back in? So still unsure of that, but we should still expect him to return before the regular season ends, according to head coach Chris Comblok, but we're not sure which game will he be returning in. Alright, NHL games on the slate for today. So there's only 5 games on the slate. Got the Minnesota Wild taking on the New York Rangers at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Gabe Perreault NHL debut with the Rangers for this one. Last meeting of the season between the two teams. The Rangers won 3-2 in overtime back in St. Paul on March the 13th. Brady Schneider had the game-winning goal in that game. And then the Great 8 chase resumes in Carolina as the Washington Capitals head to Carolina, take on the Carolina Hurricanes at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. Alex Ovechkin up to 891 goals so far. Just 4 goals away from the record. Like I said, he could get a hat trick in this game to tie him with Wayne Gretzky for most goals in the NHL's all-time goal scoring list. And then on Friday, he can just break the record in that game at home. So we'll see if that will be the case in this game tonight. That game will start at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time on TNT, True TV, and HBO Max. 3rd and 4th meetings this season between the two teams. The home team has won the first 2 meets. Carolina won 4-2 at home back on November 3rd. Washington won 3-1 at home back on December 20th. And the final meeting is April the 10th in Washington, D.C. And then we got the Florida Panthers taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. So this will be Brad Marchand's first game as the Florida Panther facing the Toronto Maple Leafs. We all know he has a historic rivalry with the team back during his days and during his time with the Boston Bruins, but he's going to renew that rivalry in this game against the Toronto Maple Leafs as Florida Panther. Third and fourth meetings this season, 22 teams. The Panthers have won the first two meets. They won 5-1 at home on November 27 and 3-2 in regulation in Toronto on March 13. And in the March 13th game, Sam Bennett had 2 goals in that game, both on the power play. Final meeting is in Florida on April the 8th. And then we got a Central Division showdown between the Colorado Avalanche and Chicago Blackhawks at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Second of a TNT doubleheader. Last meeting of the season between the two teams. Chicago won the first 2 meets against Colorado. They won 5-2 on October 28th. And then in Denver, they won 5-2 on October 28th in Denver and 3-1 at home on January 8th. And then they were shut out by the Avalanche on March the 10th, the game that Nathan MacKinnon got his 1,000th career point in. And then we got a Pacific Division showdown between the Seattle Kraken and Vancouver Canucks at 9:30 p.m. Central Time. Potential rivalry between the two teams, considering that these two teams are so close to each other north of the border. Last meeting of the season between the two teams, the Kraken has won 3 out of 4 of the season series meets. They won 5-4 in overtime in Vancouver on December 28th, which was a comeback game for Seattle, and then they won 6-3 at home on March 1st. The Canucks won 4-3 in the shootout in Seattle on January 2nd. Alright guys, that is going to do it for this episode of Hockey Talk TG Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. Really do appreciate it. Make sure that you're following the Hockey Talk TG Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and you subscribe to the YouTube channel with you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 11:30 a.m. to noon Central Time. And it really helps me out. And it really helps the podcast out as well because it gets it out to more viewers. More people will start tuning in. And, just really helps me out. It really helps you out, too, so that you can stay up to date on the latest NHL news and general hockey news that happens. So you want to make sure that you give the podcast a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Both of you guys have a great rest of your day. God first, as always. Be blessed. I will see you guys Friday for another episode of the Hockey Talk with TG Podcast. Take care.